Hi everyone, this is Michelle from Tula Yoga coming to you from our studio here in Longview, Washington. Today through Thursday at noon, I'm going to be teaching a foundation series. So basically, if you're new to yoga and you're trying to figure out how to do the poses and you're going onto YouTube or maybe watching our videos, which we are on YouTube, and if you're interested in that, message us and we can send you a link to our channel. Anyway, we want to make sure that what you're doing at home is safe, and so that's why we decided to go ahead and do this series. So I'm going to be, this is very different for me to teach this way. I am having another tablet here so I can see your questions while we go through this workshop. So as I'm teaching, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to send me a message so that I can answer it for you. And most of the time, if you have a question, it's probably a question that other people are having too. So let's also make sure that we have some props. So a blanket, a pillow, a belt, or anything long that you can use. So in the studio we have straps. I know not everyone has these at home. So if you can maybe get something long for your practice, go ahead and do that. Also we have yoga blocks, and I know that that's not something usually handy for people. So if you can find something that gives you a little height, you can even use a chair, anything so that if you're doing maybe a forward fold and it's you need some support underneath your hands, you have that. So we have a couple minutes, so we'll be giving everyone a little bit of time here before we get started. All right. I'm going to scoot back a little bit and take this other tablet with me. Can you guys hear me okay? Can someone, if anyone's on with me yet, just let me know that you can hear me? All right, so I'm going to scoot back a little bit here and we'll get started. So welcome to Tula. Thank you so much for watching our videos and supporting our studio as we go through these crazy times. So with Foundation Series, what we're doing is teaching you the basics of the poses. So, and these are basic poses as well that we're teaching today. So it's going to be a 4-part series, Monday through Thursday. I'll start it at 12 o'clock and end at 1 o'clock. All right? So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to talk about is breathing, Ujjayi breath. So Ujjayi breath is a way of helping our body focus and concentrate, or help our mind, focus and concentrate. So go ahead and get comfortable on your mat, or if you're sitting in a chair. I'm going to grab a cushion here. Okay, so sitting up nice and tall, however you chose to sit, we're going to take our hands, one hand to the belly, okay? And I want you to let your inhale and exhale move through the nose. And as you inhale your breath, think of your belly button pushing into your hand. So your belly is expanding out. And as you exhale, let the belly draw towards your spine. So you'll feel your hand come back in. So inhale, belly button goes out. Exhale, belly button comes in. Let's try that a few times on our own. And if it helps, close your eyes so that you can focus into your breath. By the way, I asked previously if you guys can hear me okay. If you can hear me, can someone let me know by just saying yes or thumbs up? Anything would be great. So now I know that this way of breathing is a little weird. For some people, maybe they're already breathing that way. Sorry, I'm watching to see. All right. Hi, Shelley. So I'm trying to see who's watching right now. Hi, Floyd. So as you inhale and exhale through the nose, see if you can feel the vibration in the back of the throat or the roof of your mouth. Okay? So now we're taking it kind of to the next level. Not only focusing inhale, exhale through the nose, feeling that breath move farther back into the body. And thank you. All right, so here we go. Okay, I'm going to turn up my phone a little bit, see if that helps. Thank you. All right, thank you, Shay. Let me see if I can possibly turn this up. Okay, hopefully that helps a little bit. Oh gosh, and I messed up my alignment of my phone. Okay. All right, so inhale, exhale through the nose. That's what we were working on. Then we were focusing into the breath, letting the belly button move out and the belly button draw in. Okay? So that's called Ujjayi breath. And all it is for helping you with concentration in your yoga practice. Okay? All right. So we're going to stand now and work on bindings or bandhas in yoga. And these bindings, they're used to create dynamic tension in the body. So you're using a different, you're using different muscles to hold you or support you in your poses than maybe what you normally would think would be you'd be using. All right, so let's go ahead and stand. And take your pillow or your blanket with you, okay? So just make sure it's handy. I'm gonna use a block. Actually, I will use a blanket so that I'm doing maybe what you're doing at home. Okay. So the first binding that we do is our feet, okay? So in your feet, I want you to spread out the toes, lift the toes, and then reach the toes forward like you're trying to make your toes as long as possible, okay? And hopefully you can start to feel the top of your foot working just a little bit, but also your inner and outer arches, okay? You may also feel your lower leg muscles working here. All right. Hi, Karina. Okay, so with your lower leg muscles working, we don't want to overwork those inner and outer arches. So you choose how much you need to support you in your poses. So this is called foot binding. All right, now we're going to take our blanket between our upper thighs, and all you're going to do is hold it with your inner thighs and squeeze inward. Very good. And that's going to lift your pelvis floor. That's our second binding. All right. Now, go ahead and move that away. Take your hands to your waist. So the next one is called our belly binding. We're going to draw the belly button towards the low back, but it's not just sucking your belly in, right? So we all know how to pull the belly button in towards our low back, but it's a little more than that. So take your hands to your waist and imagine you are going to thread the fingers together or draw the fingers towards one another. Have you ever had to put on a tight pair of pants and you really try to suck it in and almost make the sides of your body a little bit more narrow, like drawing everything in? So it's that kind of feeling, okay? Now, this is called our belly binding. You should feel it in the very low belly, right in this area. If you start to feel it in your low back, dial it down. You're doing it too much, okay? All right. So that's our belly binding. So we had foot, pelvis floor, and belly. The next thing is our hands and our forearms, okay? So hand binding is called Hasta Bandha. So I want you to imagine you're pulling your thumb towards your index finger, like this, but without moving your fingers towards each other, right? So it's an isometric contraction, and we're contracting this muscle right here, okay? And you'll see the forearms will get a little more firm, okay? So with our hands to the sides, imagine you're pulling your thumb towards that index finger, or your pointy finger, and you'll feel your lower arms firming. So that's the hand binding. All right, so the last one is our head. It's called Jalandhara. So I'm going to turn to the side. So I want you to bring your head right over the spine. Okay? So instead of jutting the head forward or pulling it back too far, just let the head rest right over the spine. Okay? Should feel, so all the muscles on the front of the throat and all the muscles in the back of the neck should feel soft. So your head is just kind of hovering there. So those are the bindings that we use in yoga. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and make sure there's no questions. If anyone has questions, please put in your questions so I can answer for you. All right. So if no one has questions, let's go over it one more time. Just get those bindings working, and then we'll move on. Okay, so I'm going to stand again. And I want you to stand with your feet in line with your knees, and your knees in line with your hip points. And hip points, what I mean is where your thigh bone attaches into the pelvis. Okay? Slightly bend the knees, so just a little micro bend. All right, now hands to your sides, palms facing forward. Very good. So this is mountain pose. This is one of our poses, Tadasana. All right. So before we move into our bindings or using those contractions that I just showed you to support your poses, I want you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable enough doing that. And just notice if you feel the body kind of swaying a little bit. And this is very normal. And then, with your eyes still closed, start to contract the inner and outer arches of your feet until you feel your lower leg muscles tightening up. And then there's a micro bend to our knees. Lift the pelvis floor. So remember what it felt like when you were squeezing the blanket. Draw the belly in. Okay, we're putting on the skinny pants. Let the hands and forearms start to work here. And then take the head directly over your spine. And then notice how that swaying in your body has probably lessened quite a bit. Right? So these 5 bindings in our body help to support our poses. Right? So we're creating a dynamic tension as we hold. Now let your breath move in and out of the nose. So that Ujjayi breath. Feel the breath in the back of the throat or the roof of the mouth. Let your belly button draw out as you inhale, and as you exhale, pull the belly button back in. Okay? Now, softly bring the gaze forward, or softly open your eyes. Okay, so that was mountain pose. So we've gone through our breathing and creating dynamic tension in the bodies with the bandhas. Okay, does anyone have any questions before we continue? I'll also have a time at the end of this that I open it up for questions. And if later you're watching this later in the day and you have questions, you can put it on here or private message me, and I will answer your questions. Okay, so before we go further, I want to talk about the 6 ways that our spine moves, just so that if I refer to that, I don't lose you or make you confused, okay? So we have neutral spine. We were just there in mountain. Neutral spine is when we are in our most supportive shape. We have extension, so back bending. We have flexion, rounding forward. We have lateral flexion, right? Bending sideways. And we have rotation, okay? And the last one we have is axial extension. So we can actually make our spine get longer. So if you actually put your hand on top of your head and then move it away just like a couple centimeters, you can really reach the top of the head towards the hand, and you're actually lengthening your spine. We're the only mammal that can do that, by the way. Okay, so I use a lot of extension, flexion in my teaching. So if you hear that, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So, any questions so far? Before we continue? Okay. So come back into mountain. And this is the first pose breakdown. Okay. So Tadasana, mountain, can be done 2 ways. It could be done with your feet hip distance apart. And I'm not talking here. I'm talking where your thigh bones align into the pelvis. Okay. So ankles, knees, and hip bones, thigh bones, all in line with one another, right? There's a micro bend in the knees, okay? And I'm not talking here. It's just a tiny little bend that you can feel. So a relaxed feel in your knees. Good. Now take your shoulders more over your hips and bring the head over the spine. So this is mountain pose, and you should feel strength and stability and support in this pose. All right, now mountain can also be done with the feet together. It's a little more challenging. This is actually called Samasthiti, but for this beginner course, we're going to do it with feet apart, where we're a little more stable. All right, so the first pose after mountain is upward hand salute. So as you inhale the breath, take your hands up overhead. Good. And then bring the hands back to your sides. Pretty easy, right? When your hands go up, try to tilt the pinky slightly up to rotate the shoulder head and keep your neck muscles nice and soft. So as you inhale, start to tilt. Like imagine you have a bowl in each hand. I don't know if I can get this in frame. And you're tilting the bowl back. So here we go. Reach up. Very nice. Now you don't have to look up, okay? It's just a lift. All right, now from here we're gonna come into a forward fold. So watch as I forward fold. My arms go to my sides so I'm not leveraging in my low back, okay? Inhale up, okay? Now as I exhale, I'm gonna sit back like I'm sitting in a chair, okay? Hinging in my hips, bring your belly towards your upper thighs. So this is forward fold. Now, for some people, taking hands to the floor is way too much. This is where, when I was saying, if you can find something for underneath your hands, you can set it right here in front of you, all right? Now, we want our hip bones in line with our ankle bone. And I know that's a little difficult if you're new to figure out how on earth is my hips in line with my ankles. Just bring a little more weight into the ball of the foot, less into the heel, and that will help, okay? Now I'm gonna hold here until you find something underneath your hands, okay? And then if your low back and the back of your legs is not uncomfortable here, then you can come a little lower, okay? So if you are very comfortable here and taking the hands towards the floor is fine, then go ahead and do that. So this is called forward fold. Now we want to avoid flexing in forward fold, okay? So right here, if I'm flexing my spine forward to reach my hands to the floor, I'm hanging off of part of my spine. We want the hips to be what's flexing, okay? So that's why sitting back like you're sitting in a chair keeps the low back and the mid back nice and happy, okay? And then bring your belly and your upper thighs together. That way, that's for you to know that your spine is nice and long, okay? And whether some hands come to something, an object, maybe you have a couple cans of soup, or maybe you have a block of wood or a chair, whatever you need, okay? All right, so this is forward fold. Now we're gonna come into flat back. So bring your hands to your upper thighs and pull the shoulder blades back away from, shoulders back away from your ears, okay? So belly is drawn up to support your low back and reach the top of your head away from the tailbone. Good, and then exhale, come back into your forward fold. All right, bend the knees, drop the hips, and come up. Okay, so forward fold can be done a few ways depending on your flexibility right now. So we can, or I'm sorry, not forward fold, flat back. We can take our hands to our upper thighs and hold here, and maybe the shoulders are higher than the hips, depending on how your low back feels about this. Or maybe we're shoulders in line with the hips, right? So this is a little more challenging. Or maybe our hands will come to our shins, okay? Now you will see those that have a lot of mobility, they're able to take their hands to the floor. And the one thing you want to avoid is pulling your shoulders towards your ears if you're holding here. So if you're holding here, you have to draw the shoulder blades down the spine so that you're not rounding forward or dropping the shoulders to your ears. All right, now when we come out of the forward fold or the flat back, it's not just a lift, right? So that's low back that is taking that on. So instead we want to bend our knees, drop the hips so that you're working with gravity and not against gravity. And then as I travel up, I'm going to push my feet away from center. I'm going to reach my hands to the sides and come up. There's that upward hand salute. Okay, I'm going to turn forward so you can see. So I was here in forward fold. I'm going to deepen the bend in the knees, push my feet away from center, arms reach away, come up. Good. So you can feel this part of your body working to lift you up instead of your low back doing all the work. Very good. Okay, so any questions about any of that so far? So we had upward hand salute, and then forward fold, right? I'm going to show it again. Upward hand salute, forward fold, and flat back. Okay? All right. Just checking and making sure no one has any questions. Okay. So now we're going to go from flat back. We're going to move into what's called downward dog or downward puppy if downward dog feels a little too much today. So go ahead and come to your mat. All right. We're going to lift hands up overhead. Now bow forward into your forward fold. Inhale into flat back. Exhale, fold. Okay, bend your knees, take your hands to the floor, and step back into downward dog. Okay, now there's a lot going on here for downward dog. So I'm going to break it apart, because as you watch it, and what's actually happening is a little different. Okay? So go ahead and set the knees to the floor so that you can watch. All right, so I'm going to come back into my forward fold. So I bent my knees, I step back with both feet. Okay, my hands are flat to the floor. My feet, I'm making sure that you can see me in the picture. My feet are hip distance apart. And again, just like in mountain. Okay? Now I want you to bend your knees here and reach your belly towards your upper thighs. And we're going to push away from the top of the mat, getting the sides of our body nice and long. So see how long the spine is? We want to avoid straight legs and rounding our spine, right? So if you're trying to make straight legs and your spine rounds, you have to bend the knees. Okay. So this is our downward dog. Go ahead and try it. And if any of you have a question, we'll address it now. So, downward puppy. Let's say downward dog is too much for you. Downward puppy. The knees are to the floor and the hips are stacked right on top. And we're going to reach forward. And this is downward puppy. This is a nice variation to downward dog. All right. So we did upward hand salute, we did a forward fold, flat back, and then we went back into forward fold and moved into downward dog. So in downward dog, we don't want to feel a lot of pressure in our shoulders. So how do you know how far your feet should be from your hands? It's a really easy way to find that out. And hopefully this will all be in the picture. All right, so if you are in your downward dog and you can move into plank without letting your shoulders pass the wrist, then that's a perfect length for your downward dog. Okay? Let's say that I'm here in my downward dog and I have a lot of weight into my hands and my shoulders. Okay? If I move into plank, my shoulders are passing my wrists. So that means I have way too much weight in the front and not enough in the back. Way too much weight in my hands, not enough in the feet. Okay? All right. Also with bending your knees and pressing the hips back or bringing your belly towards your upper thighs, you'll encourage more weight into your legs and less into the shoulders and hands. All right. In each one of these poses, we want to be using the bindings that I talked about in the beginning of the class. So, foot binding, pelvis floor, belly binding, hands, and of course head. Okay, in downward dog, we draw that thumb towards the index finger and then push into your fingertips just a little bit more, right? So you'll start to feel a cup in the palm of your hand. This is gonna pull the carpal bones away from the mat so you're not getting wrist pain. By the way, if any of you during this class is experiencing wrist pain or knee pain or shoulder pain or elbow pain, please let me know so we can address it and get you feeling better, okay? All right. From downward dog or downward puppy, we're gonna go into kneeling plank, okay? So let's say we're in our downward dog. We're gonna shift forward a little bit, then gently set your knees to the floor. You want your hips in front of the knees, not over the knees, right? I'm gonna move back just a little bit, make sure I'm in frame. All right, now, in kneeling plank, watch that your butt is not dropping or your belly's not dropping to the floor, right? So, push into your hands down and forward, and that'll help to lift your hips. Very good. So this is kneeling plank. Now, if our knees were underneath our hips and our hands or our wrists are slightly in front of the shoulders, that's tabletop, okay? So tabletop is used a lot in our class. You want to make sure the shoulder again is not passing the wrist, so that'll cause some wrist pain. All right. And then press into the tops of feet till you feel your inner thighs engage and lengthen your spine. So reach the top of the head away from the tailbone. Remember in the beginning of the class when I talked about axial extension, that's a good example of where we use it. So instead of just hanging out there, we're actually lengthening our spine, okay? So again, knees are underneath your hips. If knees on the floor is uncomfortable, take your blanket or whatever it is that you found, maybe it was a pillow, put it underneath your knees, okay? Shoulders are slightly behind your wrists. Press into the tops of feet till you feel those inner thighs engage. Pull the belly up and then lengthen your spine. So this is tabletop. From tabletop, we go into cat and cow a lot. So as we inhale our breath, we reach the heart forward and tilt the pelvis up. Okay? Now you want to make sure that the belly is still engaged when you do this. So we're not letting our belly just stay relaxed and dropping everything towards the floor. Okay? So there's a slight contraction in the front of the belly when you're here in your tabletop, and then you hold it and then reach into your cow. And then as you exhale, round into cat. So you're going to tuck your tailbone towards you and then draw your chin towards the heart. Lift your upper back towards the ceiling. Inhale, rise back into cow. Exhale, round into cat. And just play with this a little bit, inhaling into cow. Exhale, rounding into cat. Take your time here, do as many as you like. And if any of you have questions, please let me know. So this is very different than how I normally teach. Normally people are asking lots of questions as they're in here with me. Like I said before, if you are having questions or later tonight you're going to practice this foundation series with me, if you start to have a question or you think of something after this class, please don't hesitate to reach out to us so we can answer that question. Okay, so the last pose before Shavasana that we're going to do is called child pose. And child pose has many variations. You basically just want to be as comfortable as you can. And so I'm going to show you a lot of variations, and then if you experience knee pain, I'm going to show you how to alleviate that knee pain. Okay, so child pose can be done either with your knees together or knees apart. The big toes touch both ways. So if your knees are together, big toes touch. If your knees are apart, big toes touch. I prefer knees apart, that's just my own body. Okay, and then we bow forward, we're hinging the hips, and you can either reach your hands forward and set the forehead to the floor. If forehead to the floor is too much, take your prop and you can use it underneath the forehead. I have some clients that they always do this, it just makes them feel better, and they bring their arms to the sides of that prop and then they set the forehead right on the block. And you want to relax here, okay? So relaxing all the muscle tension. This is a pose, anytime that you're taking a yoga class and it feels like you need a break, you can come into child pose, right? Some people like to come into downward dog to rest for a moment. So just depending on what your body needs. All right, some other ways that you can do your child pose is stack a couple fists underneath your forehead. You can put your face to the side and bring your arms beside you with palms up. Okay. You can create a lot of, so this is a really dynamic child pose that I'm going to do. So when I set my forehead to the floor, I'm pushing down into my hands and I lift my wrists and forearms. And that gives, for my own body, that gives a really nice stretch in my middle spine. Okay, so that's child pose. So go ahead and find, oh, by the way, so if this extend or flexion of your knees is too much, okay, take your blanket, roll it up, or you can use a pillow, and you're gonna set it right here behind so that you're not flexing the knees so much, right? If that's still not enough, you can use a pillow. You can take something that you can find. Of course, I have yoga blocks here, and you just slide it between the thighs and you use it as a chair, okay? Some people, child pose is very uncomfortable no matter what they do, and so they might be here because they have really bad knees, so maybe they have the blanket underneath the knees, right? So they get some cushion there, and then they're gonna set their hips right over their knees. And maybe this is their child pose. So I guess it's in whatever way that you can find a little more comfort. All right. So I know the video is kind of glitching. I can see it on my tablet. It kind of gets pixelated and then comes back. I have a feeling that is the Facebook Live, just this feature is probably overused because of our circumstances. So I apologize for that. And hopefully it will, when I post this, hopefully it will not have the pixelation. Okay, so the last thing that I want to go over today is called Shavasana, final relaxation. Final relaxation is very important for your practice. It is where we learn how to do nothing and quiet the mind. So traditionally it's done in corpse pose. I know that sounds kind of morbid, but that's what it's called. And in corpse pose, you're just laying on your back, your arms out to the sides, okay? Now, a lot of people that bothers their back, or maybe they just can't get comfortable there, you can take pillows, put them underneath your knees. So if that was to bother your low back, you can prop a whole bunch of stuff underneath. We usually use our bolsters, but I know that a lot of people are not going to have bolsters at home, okay? So however you can find whatever shape to relax in. Some people are going to lay on their sides. Some people laying down just is not a way that they can quiet their mind, so they may be sitting up. So however you want to relax, that's the shape you're going to find. All right. So we're going to practice a really short Shavasana. I'm going to sit on my cushion and kind of lead that. So go ahead and find the shape that you can relax in, and I'll give you a few moments to do that. All right. After you find that shape, gently close your eyes and take in a few deep inhales and exhales on your own. Now bring your attention to your feet. And as you exhale the next breath, relax your feet through the soles of the feet, through the tops of the feet, and through the toes. And then draw that feeling of relaxation up into your ankles and into your lower legs. On your next exhale, soften the knees and your upper thighs. Continue to let that feeling of relaxation move upward through your body. Let it flow into your hips and pelvis. Now let's take the awareness into the low back. And as you exhale your next breath, relax the low back. And again, let that feeling of relaxed state travel up through your spine, one vertebra at a time. Let all the muscles that have supported your spine today relax and melt towards the floor. Find that area between your shoulder blades and let it soften a little more as you softly let go of the next breath. Relax through the back of your neck. Soften at the base of the skull. Now let's take our awareness to the shoulders. Let your shoulders become heavier on your next exhale. Let the heaviness travel down into your arms like a river of flowing water. Let it move past your elbows. Let it move past your wrists and into the palms of your hands, stretching out into each fingertip. Let your jaw go slack, releasing the tongue and the lips. Let your eyes drop deeper into the sockets. Now on your next breath, as you inhale, scan the body for any tension you still feel. And as you exhale the breath, let it go. Do that a few times on your own. Inhale, scanning for any tension. Exhale, letting it go. So stay here as long as you like, letting the body relax. When you're ready, gently roll to your side to push yourself up into seated pose again. Now, if you have any questions and you want to ask me now while we're live, please do so. All right. So I'm going to leave you in your Shavasana, your final relaxation. Doesn't look like anyone has any questions today. I will be back tomorrow with our second class in this 4-part series. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.